We
It's a
are
good
back
week. Yeah.
together and we are doing it on Zoom again because well, I feel like I'd almost want to throw this out to the audience and whether they like us together or not. Although not to go off topic, but I was really thinking a shout out to Joel Kadish. Like it's been a long time since I've had my unofficial co-host Joel Kadish
Yeah.
come on. So I think we need to plan to have him on and talk about something, but I don't know what.
Oh, I know exactly what. So this whole the one default bankruptcy receivership for all of those that are looking to buy assignments, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
looking to do pre-con because there's a whole lot of rumble that's happening within that part of the market.
So let's dive into this week's
Yeah.
episode. But it's good to see you because I know you're incredibly busy and I am I think I'm finally over my jet lag now. But I actually said to you last time we spoke that I thought that the market was going to slow down
Yes.
and it wasn't going to get as crazy, but I keep seeing listings come up. It's very interesting. The inventory is really creeping up there.
And that's what we're going to cover off this Friday as well, because the data is going to come up there. But I want to pull this big headline story into what you're seeing, because
Okay.
Rachel, your perspective is always like colors in the lines, where headings and headlines, we know what that's all about, which is not always accurate.
Clickbait. Yeah.
So the one went into receivership, not this year, although it's all making headlines. There's a reason why it's now rearing its ugly head.
Are we
Back,
good again? Is it really? Oh, I haven't seen the new headlines, but yeah,
oh
Mizrahi,
yeah, bad
badly.
deal. So what is this about? This was supposed to be Canada's largest or tallest building, 85 towers at Young and Bloor, hotel, mixed use. The marketing was phenomenal. The idea, the concept, right in the heart of Toronto, super sexy location. We had Apple as a tenant. Like it was supposed to be the thing. Marketing made it seem like it was amazing. That was back in 2015, I believe, when they started. Remember those days? Anyway,
By the way, just to give you a quick background on that, I have a client who um has the Mizrahi is a client of his, okay?
got
And
it.
offered him into the build early back then. And he brought it to me and he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Don't touch it with a 10-foot pole."
Why did you? Okay. Now let's rewind. Back in the day, this was going to be the thing. Ms. Right. Big brand, big money, like stable. What is it that was sort of a red flag for you?
Well, you know how I feel about pre-con. I
Uh-huh.
always I always have. And yes, I have wavered over the last couple of years as I watch people get priced out of the market for the first time, although we're seeing some correction. So I don't know. I don't know. I want to talk about what I'm seeing in the condo market right now, also, as we delve into condos. But, I think that pre-cons have so much risk, and I don't want to beat a dead horse because we've talked about this before, but the contracts are really all on the builder side.
We'll talk
And
about
back then, so yeah, so it was a really sexy project and it had a big name, and
what was
he was
the work
getting in
for?
early,
Yeah.
but it
Location.
was a fortune. Like I don't even want to throw out a cost per square foot, but I want to tell you that back in 2015, I want to tell you that it was something in the like 1,500, 16, $1,800 a square foot. And so, listen, if you're going to buy an investment product, I've always said to clients, unless you're going to live in it, which is a different story, that you want to look for something that's over 700 square feet, that's got two bedrooms. Like it was on listen, it's on a subway line. You don't need parking, but you don't want a shoebox. And for what it was going to cost him, I was like, you will be cash poor, cash negative. You will not be able to rent this and make it work. And
Which
he
is so
didn't.
surprising. Which is so let's go into like what happened, like what started. So I thought, maybe there were a lot of people getting good advice and they weren't buying the condo units. It actually happened with Apple. Apple was a tenant at the ground floor and they ended up pulling out of the deal, leaving over 15K of retail space. That was the threat that started to pull this all apart.
They
And
were the first ones that pulled out.
mhm.
So that's really interesting. Did you know also that they didn't sell anything? Oh, I'm gonna get this wrong. They either didn't sell anything, they didn't sell anything under the 35th floor or over the 35th. Sorry, they didn't sell anything over the 35th floor because it was so expensive.
Yes. Okay. Now
Right?
here,
So half the building was sold and no one would touch above.
I think even less. I think about 30% was sold. It was awful, right? So
Yeah.
these guys can get their money in. What does that mean? Defaults start happening. So back in October, receivership happened. Essentially, all the senior executives said, we're done. We can't pay our loans. We're calling mercy. So they go, there are a couple ways that you can do this. So if you stop paying your debts, either the court will appoint a receiver, or if you have a contractual in the contract that says that there's a receiver that will be appointed, then you go through it that way. Essentially, when something goes into receivership, that means, hey, we can't pay your bills. We got to now think of like a new credit proposal. What can happen from here? Several things. You have a receiver who's appointed. Okay. They can think about, they can redesign the building. They can sell it. They can appoint a new manager. They
Mhm.
can strip down the bells and whistles. They are now in control of figuring out how to pay the creditors back. And that's what happened. A company called Alvarez and Co., there's a longer name to it, essentially stepped in and they were about to redesign it and do some things. Instead, what they did were several things. First, they appointed Sky Grid Construction to take over the project management, basically saying, Ms.
Oh, Rich,
Rocky,
right.
yeah,
Because Mizrahi was still involved at the
yes,
beginning.
at the
I
beginning.
knew someone in the business, in the development business, that had intel inside the mess that was going on at the
What did
time.
they say? Because there's stuff
He
cited in the
told
court docs.
me, sorry.
The stuff cited in the court docs. I wonder if it jives with what you know.
Oh no, he just told me, so they had several B lenders, right? Because they were running out of money. So they kept going. At one point, they were paying somewhere upwards of 35% to one of the B lenders on one of their like it was it was just blowing up. Like
And
I don't even understand how anybody puts a band-aid on such an amputation at 35%. It's robbery.
well,
I
what
didn't
was
even think it was legal.
Oh, it's incredible. There's a South Korean bank that also initiated the proceedings as well. So I wonder if that was one of them. I have no idea. But what was really interesting, if you look at the documents, what they cited as being one of the biggest problems is that Mizrahi Group, there was absolutely no accountability for costs, to your point. There was no procurement process. They weren't even like organizing what they were paying. There was no technology. There was no management at all of their costs. So not at all, but poor tracking. I shouldn't say that. It was just no tracking of their construction costs, et cetera. So this obviously leaves a huge balloon, a huge issue. So at the time in October, people who bought still had the possibility of getting a product in March 2025. That's no longer going to happen. Instead, what the receiver said is, screaming uncle, we're now going to sell this entire project to whoever is going to pay us 1 point something billion. I can't remember the exact number, but over just under 2 billion is what they're saying what you can buy this for. Why would I care as someone who put in an offer and have a purchase agreement for this unit or this in this project? Number one,
Right.
your contract may say, hey, if let's say Alvarez decided not to sell the project and go forward, and it's going to cost them 100, 200, $1 billion more, guess who's footing the bill? You are purchaser. So what you bought, what you thought you were buying for 1.5 million rather for your unit could be now 2 million, 2.53, whatever. So
Or you
that
lose
could
your
be in your actual agreement. It's crazy, right? Or what can happen is someone comes in, buys the entire development and says, oh, Natalka, I know that you bought this for 1.5. You know, let's deal then. Goodbye. Here's your deposit without interest over the last several years. Imagine.
Listen, at least you get your deposit back, but yes, fair. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you've
Yeah.
lost now years of interest developing on that. And off you go, right? It's completely
Uh,
terminated. So
Honestly, with that development, I feel like that would probably be the best. Like I would be like kissing the ground.
to get your because you get the deposit back for
At least
sure.
I get my deposit back.
So here's a question I have for you, Rachel. So a part of this is like the headlines are kind of saying, look, pre-con and condo in Toronto is dead. And here's an example of it dying, like its last breath or the beginning of the end. What do you think?
Hmm. I think it's a little bit of a clicky headline. Like I think I think that the condo market is going to have a tough go at it. It's had a tough go at it for the last since last summer. It's had a tough go at it as soon as the market moved. But we see this what what holds its value in market turns is single family homes in the 416.
Right.
What doesn't hold as well? 905, any product, and condo market. It just does. Look what happened with COVID. I mean, they just tend to be much more affected by these market fluctuations.
Right. Right.
Are
Well,
condos the
it is.
most affordable though? Yes. Are they going to stop? So first of all, the condo, they haven't stopped building. It's just that only the major guys are building. So Menkes is still building, Daniels is still building, like they're still building. We still need, in fact, if you look, I didn't make it to that Baycrest real estate event that I invited you to.
Right. I was
One
away.
of the things that they were talking about was there was a huge article about it was all of the major condo developments that are going up around where Sherway Gardens,
Mhm.
Yorkdale, Fairview Mall, like there's still homes that need to be built. I just think very similar. I hate to use this as an example, but like when the market was really crazy and amazing and money was free and everybody was buying and selling, all these guys got into the market and they were like, "Oh, we can be a condo developer. Look how much money these guys are making. Hand over fist," right? I had a client who was looking at a low rise development in Leslieville. They own a couple of investment properties and own a home in PEC, but
Right.
they rent in Toronto.
Oh,
And they were like, you know
Prince,
what?
Prince Edward County, PEC.
Yes, sorry,
There
Prince
you go.
Edward Counties. Yeah. So they were like, maybe we want, pied a terre that we own in Toronto. We love Leslieville. We rent in Leslieville. What if we bought in this? It's great. It's a small, first of all, I do not like small developments because of the maintenance fees. Anyway, so I'd never heard of the people. I called the same like friend of mine who's in that space and said, "Have you ever heard of them?" And he said, "No, tell them not to touch it with a 10-foot pole." Like you can't just buy stuff from people who have no experience in the building space. Now,
Mhm.
I don't know, I actually can't tell you one way or another whether that build ever happened,
Right.
but I would say that um just like there were however many realtors who were just, out there, but thinking they could make hand over fist when when the business was busy and there have, those people are giving up their licenses because it's not so easy to sell in a tough market. It's the same thing. Like the good people are just going to stay there. They're going to continue doing Mancus and Daniels. I'm just using those as an example of being around for however long. They're going to continue building. It's not going to stop. Condo market's not going to go. And also, by the way, what are we going to build then? I mean, we're letting how many people in immigration wise? I think there was a great stat. I don't know who put it out there, but they said something like 50% of the housing demand in Toronto or the GTA comes from new immigrants.
I wouldn't be surprised. It's interesting though, Ontario is now experiencing, Toronto specifically, massive population outflows, and Alberta is
We
it's
talked
picking
about
that
that.
piece up. So we're starting to see a pop up, and I bet you the condo market is doing something different in Alberta because their prices are going up. But let's plug back to Toronto. I want to know, so are you still seeing the condo market taking a hit? And let's parse out resale from pre-con. So I do want to do, I'm going to do a bit of a caveat, Rachel, before I forget. I have a great friend. She has been in the business of real estate for some time. She does appraisals, commercial specifically. I
Okay.
asked her, I'm like, what do you think? Like, what are you seeing? And she does a lot of like bankruptcy receivership. So she really knows what's happening. Her quote, and I will give her name if she gives me permission to. I should send her a message before we do. But she says it's across the whole region as far as products being unsold, right? In Yukon. All new condos are suffering, and I am working with at least a dozen projects in the process of conversion to CMHC, which the CMHC finance dedicated rental buildings, right? So they're basically saying, let's leverage, like we have this product, we can't sell it. Let's make it to a designated rental building and leverage CMHC and the funding there. essentially condo markets are going to suffer until interest rates are coming down and investors start to break even again. That's really what's driving this. She says investors have a key role in propping up the
They do.
pre-com. So since we're practically not building anything at this point and have a housing crisis, this pent-up demand will come and bite us in the beep in 2 years when rates come down to 3.5. So
Well,
price
Benjamin
will
Paul said the
spread
same
again.
thing. Yeah.
And
Remember?
good to buy if condos is your gig. So if that's your thing and you understand condos, then it's a good time to buy. Low prices ready to recover 20% of the loss and is only 10% behind its peak in February 2022. My opinion, the condo market has a lot of issues that many don't talk about it. Invest in ground-oriented housing is my advice, similar to what you said. And also the one is developer specific and they are overhyped and overdesigned. Too many cost overruns, and that was a bigger issue for that
Yeah.
project.
I mean, my feeling about the one is just that, you can take it and stretch it as much as you want and you can make inferences and everything else. But the reality is that, that's not,
Right.
there's a massive development out on Lakeshore, out in Port Credit that's going up. There's two of them actually, like there's no receivership happening. They're all sold. People are buying. Um, I would say so a couple of things. So someone actually just asked me yesterday about the condo market, and I said to them, the numbers were that the largest amount of condo projects coming to closing fruition, so closing occupancy, were last year and this year, the largest numbers.
Yes.
And when were those bought? They were bought back when money was like free. And so people bought them and they said, oh, this is such a great idea. And I'm going to buy. Listen, I was talking about it. I was like, buy a pre-con, put someone in it, buy it for your kids, give it to your kids later on. Anyway, we won't even get into the capital gains. That's another conversation, another episode. But I think that we're going to see people not being able to close on it, not getting their mortgages. I think there is. I think we still live in Canada where there's a lot of regulations and rules and control in the banking system. But I think there's going to be an over like there's going to be high inventory. There's high inventory now. There's
Mm-hmm.
high inventory now. I have seen a buyer's market in the condo, like saturated areas downtown in like 5, 6, 7 months worth of inventory. And yeah,
It's a buyer's
and
market.
it's a buyer's market. And I would also say that, the ones that are selling, really the stuff that I've seen that were selling were some of the larger units. Because again, that's not, you can't find a lot of them, right? Like larger units will hold their value. There's tons of 600 square feet, tons of 500 square feet, tons of that stuff. You get dime a dozen, right?
Wait, but
And
what's
the investors are not there. They are
interesting
not
you say
buying.
that because Alvera's what they were proposing to do, and I wonder if this is what gave rise to them to sell versus continue the development. They were looking, so all the units that were not sold were like really large. And what they were saying is what the receiver wanted to do was just cut it all up and sell it, like make the units much smaller. Because apparently the luxury space with the large units is there's just no market for that. Is that not the case?
I didn't say luxury though. Like that's the difference, right? Like I think it was
There?
price. Like you can still, I mean, again, what are we defining as luxury,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
right? So
And the price
if
point was probably crazy.
millions, right? I mean, you can buy a 1,500 square foot, 1,600 square foot condo downtown, depending on like in an older building with a larger for under $1,000 a square foot for
Yeah.
sure. I think,
Oh yeah, that size. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, I'm not talking 2,000, 3,000. Those are hard. I think the luxury market is really tough. I mean, look at the cottages. I mean, I definitely do not want to go off topic here, but like the 6, $7 million, like the Rosso's not moving anything right now. Like,
Luxury space too? Okay, let's
so
spin off just for 1 second. I gotta touch. You just like gave us such a cool nugget. Why?
Because I think that people who have a lot of money are looking at it saying, you know what? I think it's going to go down. I think this is the beginning of the capital gains effect. So again, like great next episode, but I think it's only I have a client who just sold his cottage. We tried last summer. It was very tough. We
Mhm.
rebound. We just sold. It's closing this month. And I think he dodged a bullet. I think like it's going to get worse. And we did not sell for what he wanted. It's very tough. But going back to condo. So okay, so largest number of condo buildings coming to fruition last year and this year. So now you think, oh my God, we're going to get flooded in the market. There's going to be so much condos. And I'm just going to pull up my handy dandy notes here. So by late 2022, builders had shelved 60
Yep.
previously planned condo projects. Okay, so they sell
21K
them,
total.
shut
And
them down.
I read that too. Shelved in Toronto Hamilton area, 21,000 units done.
By
Shelved
Q1,
forever.
forever, okay? As of Q1, um, only 958 units were available for pre-con sale.
Mhm.
So here's an interesting stat though, because I think it gets even bigger than just the condo market. So for every 1,000 units built,
Mhm.
sold, um, it creates $400 million in revenue for the GTA. That's a lot of money. And it creates 1,600 jobs. So
Wow.
if you think about the brakes being hit on these condo projects and what it means now for labor and influx of money for the GDP, for unemployment,
Mhm. Mhm.
larger issues, I think in the short term. But not to be totally negative Nelly, I will say that, and people a lot smarter than me, like a Benjamin Tall, who's saying the condo market is going to be hit hard for the next couple of years. Like we need the interest rates to rebound. By the way, I've been saying this about prices will go back up, but it's going to take time. Everyone thinks this interest rate's going to come out this week. I don't think they're going to cut the rates this. We can touch on that after. But I think that when it does rebound, we're
Right.
not going to have enough condos.
So
So people who are thinking about selling, if you can hold on, I would hold on for 2 more years.
I would agree with you on that. I think long term is always better. Now, that's if you can carry it, right? And you're not taking on 15-20% debt and putting yourself in a more of a downward spiral. Kind of
Sure.
a la Mizrahi, right? And that developed a la that one cost, the one. Like you don't want to take on too many costs such that it becomes untenable for you.
Right. Right.
Let's pivot over to interest rates. So let's talk a little bit about what you're thinking. I'm happy to quote what RBC is thinking as well. And then let's hash that one out for big predictions. I think, isn't it tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Yeah, let's do it. What's the prediction?
So my vote is no. There'll be no cut tomorrow.
Ooh, okay, why?
Well, we touched on it just before we started. So I think the news and the headlines are saying it's going to be because um, we had a checklist of things that the Bank of Canada was using last year, or the year before, to make sure that they did not increase for the reasons not to increase it. All of those are clear now, right? We've got our inflation under control, our unemployment, like all that stuff. Everything's fine. But we also know that housing is inflationary.
Right.
We put more money into buyers' hands. If we put more money, they don't, what are they going to start printing money again? Like we are so not like I mean, again, I don't want to get political, but I truly believe when the Liberal government is voted out, we are going to actually find out when they open those books how bad it is. And I truly believe in the Bank of Canada is not governed by a political body. We have seen to the contrary over the last couple of years. And I think that they are not going to they're not going to chance it. And I think that they're going to wait. Do I think there's one in July? The market's over by then, right? June market, it's still spring market. It's July, everybody's on it's almost like they talk about them like these PR gurus who say like if you're ever how did I do that?
I don't know, but it's great.
Like um uh PR gurus who say like if you want to announce something but you don't want anyone to notice, you put out like a
On
statement
a
on a
Friday
Saturday,
evening, yeah.
Friday afternoon. I feel like this is going to be their TMZ. Like, like they're going to just be like, and rate cut, and everyone's going to be like, oh, I'm on vacation or I'm at the patio. Did something happen? Like, oh, whatever. And then fall will be fall, and fall's never like crazy. It may just stabilize, but I think it'll be so small. I
And
think
the
it'll be
July
so
cut.
small. I think it'll be a 2.5 at best. So what's that going to do? Like,
Yes, so the headlines are essentially like the big banks or the big thinkers and economists are the broader narrative is that inflation has been managed. We can now bring it down maybe a quarter of a point, right? Um, the contra to that is, wait a second, we do know if rates go down, even if they're inconsequential, it will have a psychological impact to get more people into the market, specifically housing. And if you actually look at rent rates, they're not going down. They're still pretty high. And what the government
because people have
noticed,
to cover their
yeah,
costs, right?
yes, their voter base, which is young buyers that are trying to get in, is going to be very annoyed if during the tenure of the Liberal government, that the interest rates continue to go up, right? And or not go up, rather, a cut in interest rates would cause for another big boom in the market. So the argument there is that the government's smart, right? And they know that inflation is mostly driven by the housing market, and so they're going to be a little bit cautious in lowering any interest rates. Also, because if you actually look at raw costs in the last couple of years, even though it's kind of stabilizing, it still is very expensive. So even though, again, inflation is stabilizing, if you were to talk to me, my husband, anybody, yourself, it's not like all of a sudden things just became more affordable the last month. Not at all. It still is expensive. And so that means that inflation may still be there in hidden areas. And so the argument against the rate cut tomorrow is that the inflation is still there. And if we do any sort of reduction, the psychology will motivate buyers out there, causing for housing prices to go up. We're back at square one. Now, the argument against that is unemployment is kind of shaky. Looks like, to your point, Rachel, it looks like rates have come down. We've broken the back of inflation. Time to start reducing inflation. Time to start reducing interest rates. However, nobody, even if interest rates do go down, thinks it's going to go down significantly. It's more going to be like, we're helping you out. We're doing a cut.
Well, right. So, okay. So first, I think a very big distinction people have to understand when we talk about inflation is when inflation gets under control, it doesn't mean things get cheaper. It means the rate in which it increases in price. So groceries are still expensive. Gas is still expensive. It's just not skyrocketing in price like it was before, but it's still like although what goes up comes down, unfortunately, it doesn't seem in groceries and everything that everybody else needs in their day to day. I mean, I literally have that conversation with clients all the time. They're like, well, what if I just did the bathroom? And I'm like, I'm telling you right now, it like that funny meme that's going around in social, like it costs $500 just to leave the house. It's
Yeah.
not a joke. Like it actually does cost $500 just to leave the house. When I go buy groceries, when I put like a funny little anecdotal story. When I was in Asia, we took a flight from Bangkok to Phuket. Guess how much it cost me? One person,
Uh,
including they charged me for my bag, but guess how much it cost me?
oh, geez, 300?
$32.
Excuse me?
I actually said to my daughter, I said, I don't think that I can go on the plane because I'm not a good flyer. So I said, I said, I think we have to look at another airline because I'm not going to go on a puddle jumper. She goes, no, mom, it's a regular plane. And it was like a Rouge plane, 3 and 3. It was fine with the air stewardess and they had drink carts and whatever. And I thought to myself, and I said out loud, I can't drive anywhere for $32. I can't even get to Buffalo for $32. And I
No.
fly from Bangkok to Phuket for $32, including the cost of my bag.
Okay, so I'm looking at flights right now. I have to do a licensing course out in Winnipeg because I'm registered out in Winnipeg. And to
Lucky
get
you.
to get out there, like the plane ride is over 200. Just Winnipeg.
$32. Anyway,
But
so
economy, worst seat, no bag, like don't eat.
$32. So what I was gonna so the other thing I was gonna say was, and I've heard economists say this, is that the Bank of Canada does not care about the housing market. They will take the housing market and throw it in the garbage if
Hi.
it needs to. They are not, we've said, we had Benjamin Tall on that call. We asked him, they said, it is not a consideration to get inflation under control. They would send the housing market into a crash. This is not something he says they take into consideration. But what I do think they take into consideration are foreclosures and affordability. And I do believe that the Bank of Canada got the people of Canada in this mess when they stood in front of all of us during COVID and said, don't worry, go spend. It's fine. Rates will not go up. Go and spend money. Go buy a house. Go buy a boat. Go buy a car. Do it, do it, do it, do it. Don't worry. And then they increased it as fast and as much as they did. So maybe I'm naive, but I do believe that it would have such a trajectory on the economy for people to start losing their homes, to have to they I believe between now and the end of the year, they are going to start doing very small, quietly, again, those Saturday morning PR announcements where people almost don't notice. So it's not going to create this big buzz. It's not going to create headlines. It's got to be like 1%. And they're just going to do it quietly so that into the end of the year, where people really aren't going out buying houses, they're not doing anything, they're closing out the year, they get things under control so that we know all those people who have mortgage renewals who are coming up
They don't choke.
are not gonna default. Although I did hear, I had a mortgage broker the other day who said he truly believes you should take a variable right now. Take the hit.
That's less than 10% of current mortgages right now at a variable.
I have a variable. I have literally eaten beep for the last 2 years, watching my interest rate go through the roof. There's no question. It made me want to vomit to watch it. And but I believe in the end, I will be on the better side of it. And he made a really good point because I said to him, a client of mine said, no, I thought she said she took a 2 year and wrote it at or a 3 year. And he goes, no, no. He goes, whatever the bank is pushing right now, they've done their due diligence on the back. Sorry, RBC, but they've done their due diligence on the back end, right? So it's like if they're pushing 3 years, they've done their numbers and their back end to say rates are going to go down. We're going to make money on this. Now, listen, lots of people like a fixed rate, and I do believe a 3 year is a good idea, and I think a 2 year is a good idea, right? But some are saying a variable because they are going to go down, and they're so close right now, the variable and the 2 and 3 year rate.
So that's
Little
another
PSA
conversation.
for anybody who's interested, but
Yeah,
yeah.
that's another conversation with respect to like what to do as far as mortgages. I locked in a year and a half ago, or as soon as rates start to go up, my mortgage was getting renewed on a property a downtown property that I have, and I decided to pay a whole whack of it off. And then because I'm like,
And a
yeah,
great property,
pardon?
great, and a great property.
Oh, I know. You know that one. Exactly.
Yes,
And
you
wonderful tenant too. She's amazing.
He's
And I was doing the math and it was like disgusting as to how much more it literally would be double. So I locked in, I think for two, you were right. They're trying to get me in for three. But I thought, I'll gamble it a little bit. Like I'm not totally certain as to what's going to happen, but I figured it would be going down. So what's interesting though about bankruptcies or foreclosures, Rachel, we're not seeing a huge uptick yet. Again, most mortgage brokers are saying 2025 and 26 is when we're going to actually see potentially defaults go up. But to your
right.
point, if the
But they've
government
been
can
saying
get
that for
back,
how long then? But how long have they been saying that? So we're saying that everybody who got in 2021 that
mm,
had a 5 year, so we're going to see it in 26. I don't know. I don't know if I believe it. listen, I hope not, but I still believe that we are going to see, we're going to see the numbers come down. I mean, is he right or not? Ben Tal called for by the end of 2025 to be somewhere in the three range.
Oh, we should, no, we should
Prime,
do betting. Yeah, time. Okay, there you go.
right. So if prime, so if you've got prime plus one or you got a prime negative one, depends. It depends. It also depends on how much you've taken on. It depends on where you're at. It depends on whether you're able to pay stuff off, right? Like whether you're able to put a chunk of money down, whether you take a hit. I know someone who engaged me about, just her husband was like, I don't want to work to pay my mortgage. Like we're gonna leave, like maybe we're gonna sell the house. And she said to me, she goes, we locked in for one more year. We figured out how to make it work, and next year we'll move. So if you've got there's creative ways to do it. They even went on with a B lender. By the way, B lenders also, they were like when I started in this business 15, 13, I don't even remember when I got my license anymore, but like, you know, no one did B lenders. Only people who couldn't like, were like taping it together, didn't have like real jobs did B lenders. Now, tons of people do B lenders because they look at your income differently. There's creative ways. I'm not saying go to a B lender. I'm just saying that there's other options. And I don't think that yeah, I just don't think the sky's falling.
Right. What's interesting too is that the interest rate drop, even if there is a small one, or even if there was, I don't really think it's also going to be very useful for builders because since 2020, building costs have gone up for builders 59%. So they're getting killed on inflation, 59% since 2020 to now. And they're still paying like high borrowing costs, like 19%. So I don't think, even if there is a drop, that this is going to spur any more activity. It's going to revive the condo market or the pre-con market and so on. I just think it's going to be a nothing burger.
40, it is 100% nothing burger with cheese on it. I
Yeah.
honestly think, I think this last stat I saw was like 40% of all builders pay in their cost as taxes. So I feel like, again, not to like, and I know we have to round this out, but you hear the government stand on a soapbox and they say, oh, we're going to build all these houses. First of all, if builders are doing it, how is the government going to do it? And the way that they could do it is make it easier for builders to actually build and take some of those costs off of them, but they don't. So
And
I
process.
think so predictions are there's no rate cut tomorrow. The condo market's going to have a tough go. I would say probably till the end of 2025. I think things are going to sell, but the prices are not going to be there, and there's going to be high inventory.
Okay, so I'm gonna take the opposite of some of your bets.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll say
Like,
rate cut by like a nothing, like quarter. If it's a quarter of a point, I'll be surprised. Uh,
okay.
I think that
Can you
the
do less than a quarter?
I don't know.
I don't
Possibly.
know.
I'm not certain. You could. Theoretically, you could, but I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway, they're gonna do like small little smidge of a thing. Um, Maybe some buyers start looking, but everyone's gonna at first there's gonna be a bit of a pop of activity, not actually buying, just people in the market. And then they're gonna realize that that rate cut is not really gonna do anything, and we're gonna return to status quo. I think that condo, one unit, the investor type of profile will continue to be out there for sale. But I think to your point that we're going to continue to see recovery. Depends on the job market, but we'll see like not recovery, but like just flat, I think, in Toronto. Now, other places like Alberta, and I know I keep on alluding to them, but they're starting to get a big resurgence because the government a couple of years ago started to invest in drawing people away from Ontario and BC to Calgary.
Yeah.
That's where we're starting to see, like in Alberta generally, like Edmonton, et cetera. That's where I think we're going to see the overall market stay quite healthy, and even we're going to see some increases in prices there. But that's again because net migration is positive. We're seeing a decline in Toronto. So I'm curious to see how that decline in population nets out. as
Yeah.
far as pricing goes too, right? If it's going to continue to accelerate as fast as it does.
Yeah, or maybe even we get a third market in Canada. Maybe more immigrants decide to start moving there instead of coming to Toronto and Vancouver. Because I
Yeah,
mean, hearing also there's people who have come here from other countries and are leaving because they just are not finding the opportunities. And it's
absolutely.
hard in these markets. But
I'm gonna I'm gonna do a quick plug for RBC. If you
okay,
actually are interested in I'm gonna pull up I'll put in the show notes, but RBC has
yeah,
just launched a really cool think piece in which they go through our GDP and the things that are stopping us from growing, the trends that they're seeing from like AI to agriculture, all these things and how that's impacting the overall environment
yeah,
for investment, for growth in Canada, where jobs are, housing. It's really good. So we'll put in the show notes. I'll be sure to send that
yeah,
over.
I'd love to read it myself.
Just launched and it has a huge impact. And I would read it with the view of how does this relate to the real estate market and whether or not you should be buying or selling.
Love it. Okay.
And that's it, my friends. I
Thank
thought
you.
it was wonderful.
We're going to find some positive news to talk about. But you know what? I think in
Well, there's no
everything
crash.
also, I would say to you, the other thing I'll leave the show with was I said to the friend of mine who asked me about the condo market, I said, listen, I think this is when like those companies like the Warren Buffetts of the world go out and buy all the condos. Like, is there that opportunity that first time buyers come in and say, I might actually get something for less, and be able to get into the market where, we couldn't even a good condo, you couldn't even get yourself into one of those a year ago.
Right.
So
And I agree, Rachel. The good news story is the buyers, if you're, paid
opportunity.
off and you
Yeah.
need 2 rooms, now's the time. Plus, if you think that rates are going to close in July and you want to get active then, mistake, because it's when everybody's going to be active. What I would do is extend the closing to when you think rates will drop so you can get a better deal. And there
Have
you
a wonderful
you
day.
too,
We'll
and
see each
we'll see
other
you
next week.
post
Oh yeah.
announcement and
All right.
post data are fun
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
This was
Yes.
fun. See you
Thank
all.
you.
Bye.
Bye.